Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn, and I just got back from SCG Con Houston, and there's so much craziness we have to talk about. I'm going to be doing a full recap video with everything that went down in Houston. I also have videos coming detailing the finals matches. You'll get to watch the finals matches in their entirety, and that's pretty exciting as well. But before I got to editing all of that, there's something that we absolutely just need to talk about right now, right out of the gate. As soon as I showed up at SCG Con Houston, I noticed there is a brand new lit up banner announcing that Tom Felton is playing the role of Valen Voss in the next set for Wonders of the First, Set 2 Call of the Stones, which is coming in February. And on this new lit up banner, we have new spoiled cards, a new sneak peek into what is coming in Call of the Stones, and we absolutely need to cover this right now because things are looking absolutely crazy. So we're gonna dive in. Please like, please subscribe, do all the things, and let's see what these cards have to offer. So first of all, we have a new alt art version of the Valen Voss card. They showed off another version of Valen Voss that is signed, does have an autograph by Tom Felton. Very, very cool. Just to remind you guys, this is the original version of Valen Voss that was spoiled, the original art, if you will. And it looks like they showed us signed autograph versions of both this and the alt art now on this banner. Something I do want to point out about this before we move on to the really juicy spoilers is we were sort of theorizing what the numbers and letters at the bottom left of this card means. It says TFA1A. Now, if you look at the newly spoiled card, it says TFA3A. So I think we can kind of guess that the TFA is Tom Felton something, maybe autograph. But what separates the different alt arts from each other is the number in between the TFA and that A on the end there. So this one being 3 would insinuate that this is the third art or the second alt art possibly for this card. And this one being TFA1A, it is the first alt art for the card, or maybe just the original art for the card. It could be either way, hard to tell. But we do have a little bit more clarity on exactly how they're numbering these alt arts and what those letters and numbers mean at the bottom left, which is kind of interesting. Now, with all of that out of the way, and as cool as this card looks, I mean, the original version that we saw, he kind of looks more serious, more regal, maybe in a position of authority, maybe a high mage or something like that. And this new art looks really interesting. He looks like he's more of like a swashbuckler or maybe a bounty hunter, which kind of makes sense because his type is Legendary Wonder Stoneseeker Quill Hunter specifically. So almost sort of like a bounty hunter feel, I guess. Obviously a hunter for the Phoenix Quill. He's trying to track down the Phoenix Quill. That's not 100% confirmed, but you can assume as such. It would be silly if it wasn't, right? So that leads us to the rest of the cards. You'll notice this card here says on play and tap free, create a story token in this or an adjacent realm. That means as soon as you play him, you can grab this guy. Quantris the Relentless, a legendary story token wonder, dragon, cosmic hunter. Now, I would assume that this story token is specific to Valen Voss. There are almost definitely going to be more Stoneseekers. Those Stoneseekers are probably going to have similar abilities, being able to interact with story tokens, and I would assume the story tokens are kind of unique to the specific Stoneseekers. And we'll get to why I think that when we get to the next card that we're going to spoil. But let's talk about this one first. Quantris the Relentless. We can't see what its power is, but I do want to point out that with the amount of negative space that there is in that box compared to Valen here having a double-digit power and how much negative space there is there, I think it's safe to assume it does have a single-digit power. So I'm going to guess that first off. And then he's got flying, and he also has this ability on arrival, seek for a legendary something 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 cost 0. and then on round end, sacrifice something, 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 control a Phoenix Quill. We're gonna make some leaps in logic here and try to guess what this could be. Seek for a legendary something with cost 0. It could be a legendary item with cost 0, which I would argue is probably the most likely case, considering when you do look at Valen, he is Legendary Wonder Stoneseeker Quill Hunter. That goes back to that trying to hunt down the Phoenix Quill most likely. This sort of adds credence to that. If on arrival, Quantris the Relentless seeks for a legendary item with cost 0, he would specifically be trying to find the Phoenix Quill, which right now is the only legendary item with cost 0. Theoretically, though, this could be seek for a legendary anything. It could be seek for a legendary card with cost 0. It's also possible that there are new cards coming in Call of the Stones that are items with cost 0, legendary items with cost 0, that this could find as a substitute. Or maybe there are legendaries that aren't items, you know, legendary land, legendary wonder that has cost 0. Maybe there are alternates that you can find with this. But it seems pretty clear to me that with this card's ability, the fact that it is a story token, which Valen uses, and the fact that it's looking for a legendary with cost 0, and then you combine that with the fact that he's a Quill Hunter, it all just makes so much sense. And then this on-round end ability is where it gets really interesting. Sacrifice blank blank control a Phoenix Quill. Sacrifice this if you don't control a Phoenix Quill, or sacrifice this if you do control a Phoenix Quill. I could kind of see it going either way. It would be interesting where, you know, you play Valen Voss, you get to fetch Quantris, put him into play, and then you have Quantris, you find a Quill. If you sack the Quill, now it's no longer there. On round end, it checks if the Quill is there. It's not, you used it, so Quantris has to be sacrificed. That's a possibility. It could also just be like if you manage to, if you miss when you're seeking 4, because the way Seek 4 works is you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. If you don't find the Phoenix Quill in the top 4 cards of your deck, it's possible you don't hit it, and then it's not there on round end. Sacrifice it. If you don't control a Phoenix Quill, you have to sacrifice the Quantris. So there could be some risk reward there, where in some situations the Quantris is only really around as a valuable power push, maybe in just one round, unless certain things line up just right. You could just go the opposite direction as well. It could say on round end, sacrifice this if you control a Phoenix Quill, meaning that even if you do find one, you can't just hoard it and wait and use it whenever you want. It's gonna force you to have to use that Phoenix Quill that round, and if you don't, if you still control it, you would have to, you know, sacrifice Quantris. So I don't know which would be better or worse. If you guys have comments on that, definitely let me know in the comments. I could see it going either way. Either way, this is kind of insane. Getting to spend 6 energy, possibly just 5 energy if you have the link in play, the Boundless Link, to get an 11 power wonder in one realm, and then also on play, put this Quantris in the same or an adjacent realm, because the way it's worded is create a story token in this or an adjacent realm. Also getting this Quantris with who knows how much power as a flyer that also maybe finds a Phoenix Quill. Sure, you've got some hoops you need to jump through in order to keep Quantris around, but all of that seems insane. And then you add to that the fact that Valen still has an ability to tap free and make another one. Now, the big question is, are you going to be able to make another Quantris? I would argue no, because it's a legendary story token. Are we going to get story tokens that aren't legendary, that maybe you could make the same story token on play as you then make when you tap free and search the same thing? Either way, I think we can confirm with what we've seen so far that there will be multiple story tokens to choose from with these Stoneseekers, and the tokens themselves will probably, we don't know for sure, but probably be unique to the Stoneseekers that are finding them, considering the fact that Valen is a Quill Hunter and Quantris looks for presumably a Phoenix Quill. It makes sense that this is kind of unique to Valen. It definitely is thematically, and I wouldn't be surprised if mechanically that's how it works as well. But that brings us to our next card, and this is where I double down on some of my theories. This is, who knows what her name is, Valen's Apprentice. Really cool card. You'll notice it's still a mythic here. 1 power, right? And you see her faction over here is Valen Voss. And I almost wonder, is this another story token? We don't know for sure because we can't see the left of the card. But having the faction be the name of the Stoneseeker could be a way to have the unique story tokens that only specific Stoneseekers can use, because that's how you link it to a certain Stoneseeker. So it's possible this could be another story token. It could also just be a normal mythic card that you could just play from your hand, but I don't think that's the case, and I'll get to why in just a moment. It looks like it has an on arrival ability. You may return target legendary item. Legendary is partly cut off, but it's almost definitely legendary item that you own from the abyss to your hand, it looks like it says. That's not much of a leap. That's even less of a leap than what we were guessing with Quantris. Here's the thing. How many legendary items are there in the game? Returning one to your hand is cool. You only get a 1 power wonder. All of this is good stuff, but is this mythic good stuff? I would argue that if this was just a normal card and not a story token, it would not quite be good enough to be a mythic. It just seems like it wouldn't do enough. Like, sure, you can get back a Phoenix Quill with this, which again ties it into Valen Voss, but like, you still have to spend an action, still have to spend some energy, like whatever. The wonder itself is only 1 power. Now, if this was another story token, then that's a completely different story, because being able to get this without having to spend an extra action, without having to spend any extra energy, just simply a on play or tap free ability of Valen Voss allows you to put this into play in an adjacent realm or in the same realm. Would be really, really good if you can put it into play in an adjacent realm that is completely open, where there are no enemies yet, because then the value of that 1 power goes way up. You're pressuring the stone there. Your opponent has to play something to respond to it, even though the reason that you searched up this token is not for the power. It's just extra value you get out of it. And then you also get to pull the Phoenix Quill out of your abyss and put it back into your hand, presumably. Although it can probably pull out any legendary items, and there are a decent number of legendary items in existence. There's probably a whole bunch more legendary items coming in Call of the Stones, so we don't really know just how powerful this has the potential to be, but I would argue pretty powerful, just not quite powerful enough to be its own card at Mythic Rarity. But as a story token that doesn't use an action, that you could just for free put in another realm, leverage that 1 power more effectively, get back any legendary item, that all seems definitely good enough if it's a story token for this to be Mythic Rarity. So I think that's the case. I think this is a story token, and that makes sense because her name is, something Valen's Apprentice. She belongs to this Valen Voss faction. It would make perfect sense that she is a Valen Voss story token, along with Quantris the Relentless. This guy can search up the Quill, you can sack the Quill, and then you can tap free the Valen to get Valen's Apprentice into play, bring back the Quill, replay the Quill from your hand so that it's in play, so that you don't have to sacrifice Quantris the Relentless at the end of round. That's my theory. That's what I'm thinking the play lines you can utilize with these cards will end up looking like. What's cool is I don't think the story tokens stop here. I do think both of these are story tokens. I think there's probably going to be more. I think you're going to probably have options for what to grab. We also don't know if Valen's Apprentice is a legendary. It looks like she has a name, so I would assume this is a legendary. Are all of the story tokens going to be legendary? It's hard to say. I'm excited to find out though. All of these cards look nuts. The last thing I want to point out about the power level of these cards is they remind me of how powerful Razia is. And this is something that I discussed at SCG Con in Houston with some of the people on the team, Wicked, Brian Tinsman. It's just the fact that Razia almost feels like a prototype Stoneseeker in a way, if the Stoneseekers and these story tokens are working the way I think they are from these spoilers. Razia comes down, doesn't even use an action. He's attuned, and then he's got this ability. You can tap free, +5 somewhere, -5 somewhere. He has the ability to have his 9 power in one realm, swing the math of 2 completely different realms by giving -5 to one thing in a different realm, +5 to another thing in a different realm. You essentially get to swing the math in 3 different realms with just one card, and it doesn't even cost you an action to do it because of attuned. That sort of dynamic and power level feels kind of close to what these Stoneseekers are going to be, because you get, you know, 3 cards worth of value in a way out of each of these Stoneseekers, 1 on play, you know, 1 on tap free, and it kind of feels like you can swing the math in 3 different realms, similar to Razia's. So that's sort of my prediction. That's where my head's at. But all of this is looking kind of crazy. I can't wait to see what else is coming down the line as far as spoilers from this set. I am super excited about all of this, and I'm super excited to get the rest of what's coming as far as content for SCG Con Houston out to you guys ASAP. Like I said, I have a full recap video covering everything that went down. It was pretty exciting. We had a bunch of Magic players super excited about playing the game for the first time. I'm not going to get into details though. I'm going to save that for another video. Look forward to the finals matches coming as well. So much is on the way, and I will see you there. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.